Workforce Consortium. Then we'll have Matt Kellam. He is the Military and Recruitment Program Coordinator with Dominion Energy and is also the chair of the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium. And then Kim Strahm is Vice President of Corporate Development and Administration with Community Housing Partners, and she also serves as the co-chair of CHP's Equity and Inclusion team. So these are our three speakers, and I'm going to turn it over to Brandi.
Thank you, Carrie. I would like to thank the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council for inviting Virginia Energy to speak on this panel on advancing Virginia's energy efficiency workforce and allowing me an opportunity to highlight the state's efforts to ensure that the Commonwealth has the workforce in place to meet the growing needs and technological advancements of the clean energy sector. Next slide, please. Strong clean energy policy and legislation lay the foundation for economic development, job growth in the clean energy sector. The current administration has been cognizant of this fact and has carefully woven workforce into the clean energy policy strategy that provides both economic and environmental benefits for the Commonwealth. From the 2018 Virginia Energy Plan, the passing of the 17th Energy Career Cluster in 2019, to the Virginia Clean Economy Act in 2020, policy that is meant to equitably support and strengthen the clean energy workforce pathways, eliminating barriers in education and training, having access to training and programs and having additional support resources to take advantage of these programs without sacrificing financial security. The clean energy policy that equitably strengthens the health and well-being of all Virginians, including the economically disadvantaged communities. With Virginia ranking 10th in clean energy hiring per the 2021 E2 Clean Jobs American report, increased demand for clean energy supports the growing need for trained workforce. Next slide, please. From the E for the future, E4 meaning energy, economy, equity, and environment, the energy efficiency workforce represents the largest workforce group in the energy sector. As of June 2021, there were 71,735 workers employed in the energy efficiency sector in Virginia, up 3% from the December 2020 reported figure of 71,505. It's pretty impressive numbers. Next slide, please. All buildings, from residential homes to commercial property, new and old, provide an opportunity for energy efficiency jobs. Whether it's an innovative, grid interactive, efficient building, a new construction design that showcases the latest building code standards, or an older and efficient building that would benefit from new insulation, HVAC upgrades, and Energy Star appliances, the jobs are abundant, estimating 27,300 new energy efficiency jobs to retrofit Virginia homes by 2030. And the resources to attain these skills to perform these jobs to meet the clean energy demand is high. With an energy efficiency workforce represented in 100% of the 95 counties and 38 independent cities in Virginia, the importance of ensuring energy efficiency training and resources are available in every region, including underserved and overburdened communities, will ensure the path to net zero and achieving the state's clean energy goals are met. Next slide, please. Energy equity also needs to be addressed on multiple fronts, from opening and supporting workforce pathways, such as addressing limited access to opportunity, such as like when a worker not knowing new opportunities are available in the industry, or a lack of understanding in what clean energy jobs are, especially related to the energy efficiency sector. The lack of access to funding, upfront capital funding issues, or the inability to establish margins that are needed for the business to survive. Limited access to training, certification, and development opportunities, or as can be seen more often in underserved communities, if the access to training is available, what does the individuals sacrifice in order to pursue those opportunities? A paying job, financial security, childcare issues, etc. not having adequate office support, having the ability to do the energy efficiency job, but not the staff or skill set to do the invoicing, and limited access to workers, as well as ensuring workforce diversity through DE&I programs. Workforce diversity is especially important in the energy industries. That's a tongue twister. It's crucial for expanded creativity and problem solving, as well as for enhanced decision making. A diverse workforce allows employees to pull from a wide range of experiences, skills, and perspectives, further benefiting the equitable access to clean energy programs. Solutions to these inequities start through communication, inquiring on where there's need, and working to find resolutions through paid internships, externships, childcare support, DE&I workforce programs, etc. Next slide, please. Workforce education and training are the bridge between clean energy policy and clean energy careers. All three of these working together, clean energy policy, clean energy workforce, and clean energy jobs, make the Virginia clean energy economy. Stressing the importance of getting the word out to all Virginians, from K through 12 to veterans to underserved communities, on the wealth of Virginia energy workforce resources that are readily available through continued outreach and discussions such as this. These communication efforts are strengthened through relationships with the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, the Virginia Department of Education, Career and Technical Education, higher ed institutions, including community colleges, the Virginia Chamber of Commerce, the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council, as well as energy industry sector partners. This concludes my section of the panel, and I look forward to any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Brandi. All right, now we're going to hear from Matt Kellam with Dominion Energy.
Good afternoon. Thank you all very much. And I've gotten to know Brandi well over the last few years, so it's tough to follow her. And I hope what I can share with you all will provide a little additional context and examples to what Brandi shared, but also maybe feed into what Kim will share after I give some remarks. Next slide, please. So I'll introduce myself in just a moment, but these are some of the topics that I hope to cover. Just introduce you to the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, a little bit about our overview and some of our accomplishments, talk a little bit more about energy education and training pathways that do exist and where there are some opportunities here in Virginia, as well as emphasize some of those partnerships and pipeline programs that Brandi alluded to. And also, again, talk a little bit more about workforce demand and work-based learning opportunities. Next slide. So this is a slide that I pulled over from another presentation, but I thought it might give me an opportunity to introduce myself and also, again, provide a little context to what I'll be sharing. So the main points are, I do work for Dominion Energy. I've been in talent acquisition and workforce development for over 23 years, and you can see the breakdown there. My title, again, with Dominion Energy is I'm the Military and Recruitment Program Coordinator, and I do sit in talent acquisition, but I do a lot, obviously, with other workforce development efforts. I've actually been the chairperson for the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium for the past 6 years and have been very active for the past decade. But my reason for leaving in my VCU experience is, and I'm not afraid to share this, and I think it's somewhat applicable to the work that I do now with Brandi and Carrie and many others, but I did not finish my degree at VCU. I was majoring in mass communications and public relations, but I didn't finish. And part of the reason was back in the mid to late 90s, I don't believe, and I might not have been listening carefully, but I don't believe internships and other experiential learning opportunities were marketed and portrayed the way that they are now, or broadcast the way that they are now. And so my point for sharing that is, not only is it really important for us to make sure that we have clearly defined energy education and training pathways for our K through 12 students, our post-secondary students, and others in our communities, but it's also really important in a lot of those cases to consider where we can have some experiential learning or internship-like opportunities or work-based learning. So that's why I left that in there, but that's something that maybe we can talk a little bit more about when we get to the discussion portion. Next slide, please. So just real quick, and you all can read this part. This is the VEWC's vision and mission, but primarily the purpose of the VEWC is to bring together industry associations, education at both the secondary and post-secondary level, government and community organizations, so that we can all work together to create better awareness about the energy industry, as well as the careers that we have in the industry. And then again, where there do exist education and training pathways, we should be working together to try to promote those, be it at the state level, regional, or even local levels, wherever appropriate. So that is really the intent. The VEWC has been around since 2007. And if you go to the next slide, please. This will show some of the accomplishments that we've been able to make. And a lot of these have come in the recent years. But just at a high level, you know, we have really close relationships. Matter of fact, Brandi and the Department of Energy are a great example, and community housing partners another example, but we have really good partnerships at the state level. Our membership increases every year. And I should mention that our membership is free. So at the end, I'm going to ask all of you all to go to our website and join if you'd like, and maybe help us in these efforts. I think it's the second or third full week of October every year is National Careers in Energy Week. And the reason I have it listed here is because for the past 4 or 5 years, we've actually had it proclaimed by our respective governor as Careers in Energy Week here in Virginia. And then obviously a lot of our members and others in the industry and education partner together to do things to create awareness about the industry and the opportunities. Some other things that we've done with our partners that get into Energy Innovation Challenge that actually started 3 years ago in partnership between the VEWC and the Virginia Chamber of Commerce. And it was a way to reach high school students. So again, I mentioned the importance of work-based learning or experiential learning. And that was really an opportunity where if internships don't exist for students in high school or 18 and under, that this was an opportunity for industry and students to work together. I'm very proud to say that the program grew so much in its first 2 years here just in Virginia that we were actually able to hand it up to our parent organization, the Center for Energy Workforce Development, or CEWD. And this past year, they were able to offer it nationally and virtually across the country for more to participate. Very proud of the fact that the VEWC and our partners were able to have legislation passed in 2019, adding the 17th Energy Career Cluster to the Virginia Department of Education. Virginia was actually the 4th state to add that energy cluster and its respective pathways and elective courses. But we were actually the first to do it by law. And part of the reason we did that, it was because we wanted to make sure that it was something that was going to sustain and that that we didn't give it a chance to go away and that we can always add to it. And I'll touch on a little bit more of the 17th cluster later. And then again, we'll talk about more, some secondary energy education and post-secondary energy education. Next slide, please. Here's just a quick slide about some partnerships and impacts. As far as the blueprints go that the Virginia Chamber of Commerce and the Commonwealth of Virginia put out, we've actually since 2025 been able to provide some recommendations and focus areas that have been included in the energy portion. And I think the same may be the case for the 2030 version that will be coming out. The second 2 items you see listed there, those are just some themes and some topics for our VEWC general body meetings. But I thought they were important to include because these are topics that we're always focusing on and always addressing. I listed there the Virginia Labor Market Information Shop. We've partnered, loosely partnered, but we've had a few times the VEC's labor market and information folks come in and actually talk to us about how best to access the information that is out there, how to use it as we're trying to help implement certain programs. And I'm sure, Brandi has a really good bead on, and I'm sure Kim does as well, the workforce demand data and other related data, but for a volunteer consortia like ours, sometimes that's really hard to put our arms around and to get some of our volunteer members to contribute. So, we're always willing and able to access that information that the state already has. Brandi mentioned Executive Order 43, but I think it's really important to reiterate that, that executive order addresses expanding access to clean energy and growing the clean energy jobs of the future. And the VEWC was specifically mentioned in that as one of the, the folks that can help that along. And we certainly were upholding our end of that. And then finally, as far as partnerships and impact, the Virginia Department of Veterans Services, I think is very much worth mentioning. Obviously, our transitioning service members, veterans, and our military spouses. And Carrie, not to put you out there, but I believe you're a military spouse or a veteran spouse. And so it's obviously really important for us to, as an industry, especially in this energy efficiency side of the house, to tap into that and make sure that we're really leveraging and utilizing that skilled population. Next slide, please. So just again, a little bit more about the VEWC, and I won't pause much on this slide, but you can see here, these are our main focus areas. And all of our strategic planning and all of our specific deliverables that we work towards each year, this is where they fall. And one thing that I will mention is we do have a new strategic plan for 2022 to 2024 that has been rolled out in some of our recent consortium meetings. And so we'll begin executing on that here in the next couple months. Next slide. So, and you can go to the next slide, please. So I won't go over this, but I just included this in case this slide deck is being shared. But this is just a little bit of background about the VEWC and some of the work that we've been doing over the years for the, really since 2011 to work towards making sure that we have energy education in the Department of Education and even the Virginia Community College system, because some, the VCCS and some of the schools added some energy specific education in the 2015 timeframe. But you can see that it takes a bit. But I'm really optimistic and encouraged by the fact that there is so much positive momentum around the energy industry, especially energy efficiency and all that then feeds into, and these clearly defined education and training pathways that I think that the momentum is just going to pick up and it's going to continue. So I think we're going to, as long as we all work together, I think we're going to find more opportunities to provide training and education and ultimately some employment and career opportunities to the folks in our communities. Next slide. So this just gives you a little bit of an overview about the 4 pathways that do exist in this energy career cluster for high school students to take. You can see there energy sustainability and efficiency is one of those pathways, and there's a couple elective courses specifically for that. The renewable energy course, I think that's one that the Department of Energy has kind of packaged into that particular pathway. But and Carrie and many others that might be on this call or that are partners of us through the VEWC were part of that effort in helping work with the DOE industry and other educators to create these pathways and elective courses. So I just wanted to share this, one, so that you all can see what's included, but 2, know that energy efficiency has very much been a part of the plan and the effort since the beginning. Next slide. So you can see there, I'm not sure who that is a picture of, but maybe you all recognize her. But anyway, my point for sharing this is there, and these are live links. So again, if this slide deck is shared with others, or I'm happy to share them with whomever, but I think it's really important that when we're doing this kind of work, and I think this is, such as the fall forum here, it's really important to be able to share with one another. And so that's what the promotional videos and the podcasts, which again, those are live links, that's what they're intended to do, is to help educate not only staff at the schools that might want to add these programs or that use these programs, but also parents and students who might be taking or considering taking these programs. Just again, I hate to pick on her, but Carrie was kind enough to be a part of that first podcast along with Chase Counts of Community Housing Partners and Casey Bliley, Veridian. And anyway, it's a good conversation that's led by Henrico County CTE's communications team to talk about the importance of not only this industry, but also the education pathways that lead to it, and why we need more people to get into this industry. Next slide. So just real quick, we have all kinds of opportunities and we're always working on these things. But for example, I mentioned at the post-secondary level through the community college system, we're working on, always trying to connect registered apprenticeship programs to the training and certificate programs that lead into our industry. Obviously, career and certificate programs are important, associates and bachelor's degrees. So we're always working on what is that stackable credential model look like, or what are these different options for various folks in our communities, be it displaced workers or veterans or whomever that are already adults but trying to get into our industry, as well as the K through 12, and how can they continue their education. And you can see there some opportunities that we're always working on. Next slide. So while these are not energy efficiency specific, I have left this slide in this deck just to show that over the last handful of years, there's been a lot of progress, and I'm actually was sort of hoping that Brandi and Kim would include some energy efficiency specifics about the education and training that's out there. But I just wanted to show that, again, at the community college level and the four-year college and university level, energy education is out there, and it's something that we can continue to take advantage of as far as partnering with those schools and making sure that the right credentials, certificates, and other degree programs do exist, and that we're working with them to implement where there are gaps. Next slide. And I won't spend much time on this slide, but I'm happy to answer any questions in the discussion. But I think it's really important, again, given the role that I have at Dominion Energy, to share with you just some of the different groups that are out there as far as the military and veteran communities. Dominion Energy, we've had a really strong military program, which I'm really proud of, for the past 10 years. And we keep building and keep growing and gaining momentum in our successes. But you can see there, that's a little bit about how my partner and I have modeled our program. And I won't go into great detail, but I will just highlight that the transition and pipeline programs quadrant up at the top right in green, that's really the one that allows us, kind of in this space I think that we're talking about, that's the one that allows us to partner with external organizations and try to find some of these energy specific or other related pathways where we can help transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses identify those and then easily get into our industry where we have opportunities. And then the other, Troops to Energy Jobs, that is a program that is managed and run by the Center for Energy Workforce Development, or CEWD. Again, that was piloted and launched going back to 2011. So for any energy companies that are out there and that want to be a part of that, you can certainly go there and learn more. Virginia Values Veterans, that's a Virginia Department of Veteran Services program. The V3 program itself focuses on teaching employers how best to recruit, hire, and retain veterans. But there's also a V3 transition program, which is a sister program that helps the transitioning service members, veterans, and spouses link up with those companies here in Virginia that have expressed that interest in being military friendly. So again, that's another important program that if we aren't already in this space, we can look at to take advantage of. And if you remember from my introductory slide, I was in the Marine Reserve. So I'm always a huge proponent of tapping into our service members who are active in the Guard and Reserve here in Virginia, because that's a pool of individuals that not only has civilian skills and talents, whatever those may be, as well as education, but also you get the benefit of them, having the experiences from the military. Next slide. So I know that this slide does not include energy efficiency workforce data, but I did intentionally leave it in here. Again, trusting and hoping that Brandi and Kim would have some specific energy efficiency workforce demand data, but I wanted to keep this in there from another slide deck for a few reasons. One, You can see that this is from 2019, and CEWD does a lot of work to put together these demand reports. And of course, these are, 20, 30 some page reports. But my point for sharing this is, since that time, energy efficiency has very much been on the radar of all of us in this space, to include CEWD, of course, and it is part of the demand data that I believe is coming out this week, if I'm not mistaken, because they're having their annual summit. But also, there's opportunities. So even though, Brandi and Kim and others know the data and know what the demands are and that they're ever changing, my point for keeping this in there is just to emphasize that there's always opportunities for us to keep an eye on it and to work together on how we can create more opportunities for the folks in our communities to get into this workforce space. Next slide. So again, if my slides are part of a deck that's being shared, one, you can all feel free to reach out to me directly, but also I would encourage all of you all to go to the VEWC website, which is the virginia.getintoenergy.com, to learn a little bit more about the VEWC. And there are some places, if you look at the top navigation menu, where you can communicate with us, contact us, and even join. So thank you all very much. And Carrie and Kim, I will turn it to you.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks so much for working that video still picture into yet another presentation. I'm just kidding. And you can always call me out for being a veteran spouse. I'm certainly very proud of that. And fun fact, my husband met Matt many years before I did, because he retired from the military and went to a job at Dominion Energy. So your military recruitment programs are definitely working. All right, next is Kim Strahm with Community Housing Partners. Go ahead, Kim.
Thanks, Carrie. And thank you, Brandi and Matt, for your presentations. Very interesting. And Matt, thank you for your service. And Carrie, thank you for your husband's service. Appreciate that. So I wanted to start off by talking about, I think most, if not all, people on this panel probably are familiar with CHP Energy Solutions. So I wanted to kind of bring it up a level and talk about who CHP is, Community Housing Partners. We are a nonprofit 501c3 organization that focuses on creating homes and communities that are healthy, sustainable, and affordable. And that's our mission. And we do that through three lines of business, or three sort of business segments, we call them. The first one is that you can see here on the screen in the orange box is real estate development. And so we actually purchase existing buildings, multifamily rental buildings, or land, and we develop affordable rental housing. We have about, and then we own and manage that housing as well. So we have about a little over 100 affordable housing properties in the southeast of mid-Atlantic region. And we use what's called the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Project to develop those projects. The next business segment is energy solutions, which we'll get into in just a second. And then the third in the pink box is housing services. And I kind of consider this our boots on the ground division. So this is folks that are usually at our properties working directly with the residents that live in our communities. So we have full service property management on site. We have asset management. We have and we have resident services. So our properties are what we call serviced enriched, meaning that we have folks focused on the sort of the social aspect and the social determinants of health that we and the services and programming we provide or partner to provide on site for our residents. And then lastly, we actually have home ownership within our New River Valley region where I'm located, where we do home buyer education and counseling to create typically first-time home buyers. Next slide, please. So now I want to kind of drill down to energy solutions. And like I said, I assume many of you are already familiar with work we do within energy solutions. We do weatherization, and we do a lot of building performance retrofit work under both the Federal Weatherization Program, several utility programs, and other funding sources. But then relevant to today's panel, we do training, and we have done workforce training since 1999. And really, we were one of the first weatherization providers in the state of Virginia. We began doing weatherization in 1976. So overall, the period of time, we recognized the value of quality control, and consistency among the weatherization workforce. And so that's when we received funding from the state to be able to create a training program for the weatherization network in Virginia. And then in 2010, we actually opened, the picture you see here on the screen is our existing CHP Energy Solutions Research and Training Center. Next slide, please. So why training? I mentioned that, we recognized the value of it within the weatherization network. But the reason I kind of talked about CHP's housing development work is that we're also an employer. We're in the construction industry. So we hire, subcontractors. We also hire property management staff, and it's really important for them to have a skill set around sustainability that's a value to community housing partners in the work we do. We want to push the envelope on green energy and energy efficiency technology within our properties and within the clients and residents that we serve. But a lot of times that's difficult because we need a skilled workforce to not only install, the measures and the systems to push the envelope on sustainability, but also to maintain those systems and to, keep them intact ongoing, and to address occupant behavior, which is a big issue within our work as well. Next slide, please. So the real reason I was asked to be on this panel was to talk about a program that I managed 11 years ago now, called Creates. And the reason this is relevant today, and the reason Chelsea asked me to speak to this, is because, we are on the cusp of an influx of federal funding, some of which I think it's safe to assume will go towards workforce development within the sustainability sector. So in 2010, we were the lucky recipient of nearly $4 million to do through the Department of Labor, what was called an Energy Training Partnership Grant via the ARA, American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And so it ended up being a pretty successful collaborative around workforce development. And so I wanted to share that with y'all just as an example of something that we could consider, of a collaborative that we could consider as we navigate the new influx of funding. CREATE stood for Construction, Retrofitting, and Energy Efficiency Assessment, Training, and Employment Systems. So it was quite an acronym. We were proud of that acronym. We had 7 collaborative partners. The grant started with Virginia Tech, and they were really interested in thinking about career pathways and thinking about it from an academic standpoint. And they needed, honestly, I think what happened was they needed a 501c3 to be the lead on the grant. So they reached out to us, and we were, we had just built the training center, and we were very excited about, diving into this world with Virginia Tech and we signed on to lead the project. The other partners were 3 community colleges. I know Matt mentioned the value of the community colleges and their career pathways influence. New River Community College, Wytheville Community College, and Virginia Western. And then 2 critical players in the partnership were 2 workforce investment boards, New River Mount Rogers and Virginia Western, and I'll talk more about their role. Next slide, please. So the intent of CREATES was to enable workers to gain employment in green occupations by upgrading their skills to increase employability. That was sort of our mission. And this was back when green was the word du jour for this work. And so everything was around green and putting a green shell around existing pathways. And so we kind of looked at it from 2 different perspectives, for the employers and for the job seekers. So for the employers, we would reach out and train their existing staff on, give additional certificate programs for incumbent workers so that they could advance within their own organizations and ultimately make those employers more competitive in the market. It also gave employers opportunity to hire graduates of the CREATES program We had a job board where they were able to post their open positions, and our Creates participants knew to go there. And so it was like the employers knew that they had a qualified group of candidates going onto their job board. And then we had a lot of workshops and job fairs. And then one of the main things I want to mention is that we really tapped into our employer partners to develop curriculum. So we didn't want to make assumptions or just go on the academic research. We wanted to really talk to the employers who were looking to hire and ask them what they needed and what they thought was valuable within the curriculum. And then for job seekers, obviously this was, putting people through training and giving them the certificates or the and the additional upgrades, I guess, to their resumes in order for them to be competitive in the market. And we did focus a lot on dislocated workers. Just for reference, this was a 21 county district in Southwest Virginia was the footprint for this grant. It was largely rural Appalachia, and a lot of the high poverty, high unemployment, and a lot of the dislocated workers were coming out of the manufacturing sector at that time. For job seekers, we also helped them with it. We had the job board so they could search and find employers. And then the workforce investment boards were very, very influential in career counseling and really that hand holding that many of our participants needed to be able to navigate the program and the opportunities within the program. Next slide, please. So I won't go into detail on here, but this was our community college partners. All three of them just worked so well collaboratively and with us and Virginia Tech and the workforce development boards to create a 4-tiered system for Creates. And you can see here that it went from entry-level certificate programs all the way through an associate's degree. And in some cases, they went from that associate's degree straight to Virginia Tech into one of their construction programs as well. So really comprehensive curriculum opportunities at the community college level, and just really great people, honestly, that we were working with, that we all were very we were all sort of like-minded in where we wanted to take this program. So it was a great partnership with the community colleges. Next slide, please. And then within my company, CHP Energy Solutions, we really were sort of an add-on to the community colleges programs, where we were able to provide the building performance training that we have been doing for quite some time. And our primary audience had been the weatherization providers, but we had started to expand into anybody who was doing residential construction and retrofit work. So you can see some of the training that we had here, including BPI certifications. And I will say that it was really cool, because a lot of the folks that came in, they weren't coming in through the energy efficiency sector in our world that we were used to, our bubble. They were coming in through the community colleges, through the workforce investment boards, and many of them had never been exposed to energy efficiency auditing or retrofit work. So it was really cool to see some doors open into a new sort of industry for some of the participants within Creates. Next slide, please. So I just want to reiterate, I've already said this maybe, but that it was very collaborative, and it was really cool, because I think what we would like to replicate at some, and that others could replicate, is this systems building component. Virginia Tech, our industry partners and employers, the workforce investment boards, and then the community colleges, and then CHP Training Center as a training component as well. We really worked well together and created a pathway for these participants to really improve their potential within their companies where they already worked, or to improve their potential to gain employment. I will say, I do want to call out the Workforce Investment Board. We call them the WIBs to just give them kudos for they really did the case management, and you can these are all real pictures from Creates. I had to dig them out of the archived folders, but you can see at the bottom right hand corner, that's one of our Workforce Investment Board partners working directly with a potential Creates participant. And there was just a lot of case management type work and hand holding, and it really, I think they were one of, if not one of the most critical pieces for the success of the program. Next slide, please. And speaking of the success of the program, this was just a slide showing how we actually surpassed all of our proposed outcomes. So all the outcomes that we put in our proposal for the grant application to the Department of Labor, we actually surpassed all of them and ended up being among the top 25 grantees in the country through with the ARA funding. So it was really successful. Again, it was, I think, 100% because of the collaborative nature of the team. And yeah, so it was definitely something that was successful. Let me see if next slide, please. Yeah, so what's next? I think, I think the reason I was asked to present on Creates is because we now are in another time in our history where we might have an influx of cash to or funding to work on some of these things. And so obviously the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act was just passed, and I think he might be signing it like as I speak, perhaps. And then and next up is the Build Back Better Act. And so, the infrastructure, we've already talked about this a little bit on the state level, but, there's a big push or a big component around energy and environmental priorities, including weatherization and energy infrastructure. And then the Build Back Better Act encompasses workforce development. I read a couple of things from there that said, it will enable community colleges to train hundreds of thousands of students, create sector-based training opportunities, and invest in proven approaches. And so I do think Creates was a proven approach that perhaps we could, replicate pieces of it anyway. And so I think clean energy jobs is something that is on the horizon that we need to be prepared for. So in terms of capitalizing on some of the federal funding opportunities, these are just my own thoughts, just having worked with Creates, but, be agile, be able to pivot if the funding asks for one thing, even if it's something that isn't, the crux of what you do, be able to pivot to provide that if that's what the market is asking for and the funding is asking for. Collaborate, I've already talked about that. Identify partners ahead of time to partner with, and then consider competitive advantages for a funding application, including serving underserved populations, leveraging existing funding streams, creating a program that's scalable and replicable. And sorry, Matt, I don't have data on demand data at the ready. I think we're kind of waiting for the, some of the opportunities through this federal funding to shake out, and then we'll really have a better sense for what that demand looks like. And that's it from my end.
Great, thank you so much, Kim. Those were all very good presentations and all had a different angle. We do have some questions coming into the chat, and just remind you, if you do have a question, go ahead and submit it to Chelsea via the chat. But first question, and this is directed to Matt, but I think probably all of you could have thoughts on this. How do you anticipate changes in the curriculum and workforce training as Virginia and the US begins their transition away from fossil fuels?
Well, I guess probably maybe the easiest or the best way to answer that is, I do know that the Department of Education here in Virginia and across the country, and the community college system in the respective schools, and actually I think, Kim, you kind of alluded to this in what you shared about the Creates program, which is awesome, and I'm sad and a little embarrassed to say that I hadn't heard of it until I saw your slides, but the point is they're all really good at always monitoring their curricula. So, if a program isn't meeting current demands or anticipated demands, it's easy for the education folks to bring back together industry and other educators or whomever folks in the community to work on improving portions of or an entire course. So the educators do a really good job of that, and the industry, and I think this is maybe an example of how all of us in today's forum and even through the VEWC, the industry does a really good job of letting the educators know this is what we need, and what we have here needs to be updated. The last thing I'll say is, and I'm speaking more to the development of the 17th Energy Career Cluster and the respective elective courses. They were constructed in a way that was forward thinking, best we could do it at the time, which was 2020. And but they're also constructed where the framework themselves, I believe, offer flexibility to make those adjustments. So even if the whole course doesn't need to be redone or taken off the shelf or what have you, I think it's easy to update portions of it so that it stays relevant. So I hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Brandi or Kim. Do you have anything to add on that?
The only thing that I might add to that is, as Matt mentioned, we tried to build them so they were forward thinking, and that educators could reach out to industry partners to ensure that they were up to date and remain current. But something that we also spoke about when we were developing the curriculum was, as there is a transition to more of the clean energy jobs, making the resources available to transition economies from the fossil fuel oriented section into that clean energy transition, so that you're not leaving a void where once there was something. You want to be able to make sure that you're able to ensure that the pathways are open so that those economies have the resources available to get the training to tap into those new jobs as they become available. And one of the things that I tried to stress was energy efficiency is the largest energy sector demand job, and it covers every section of Virginia, far corners. Everybody needs to be able to implement these resources into the new homes and commercial buildings and properties. So that's something that they just tried to work into so that they could ensure that there weren't any holes or gaps.
All right, thank you. While we're discussing the Energy Career Cluster, I have a question about that. Can you discuss a little bit more how students find those courses, what students are eligible for those courses? Would they come across those in their standard curriculum, or do they have to seek them out in a special pathway?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think, again, it starts with the particular school or school district offering, determining that they have the resources to offer the pathway or the courses. So, for example, and Carrie, you're in Henrico County. Henrico County CTE is offering the energy sustainability and efficiency pathway through Tucker High School for the first time this school year. And by the way, this school year is the first year that the pathways and the elective courses are offered. There's an energy and power course and renewable energy course, and I think maybe a third that had been offered since the 2014-15 timeframe. But again, only a couple handfuls of schools were offering either or all of those courses. So again, the school itself has to offer it. I know that Goochland County has started this school year an energy academy, and I think it also does follow the energy efficiency and sustainability pathway. I believe Alexandria Public Schools, I think their CTE might be offering some of the energy courses. And I'll admit that kind of gets back to my comment on, and I have to always be regularly checking in with the Department of Education, but I don't always know which schools are adding the programs unless I track them down and find out, or someone tells me. But that is all to say that the school has to determine. And matter of fact, Surrey County is offering energy courses, and again, there's still a couple others that are doing that. But Your school has to have the resources and determine that they can offer a course or a particular pathway, and then they would market accordingly to the parents and the students to promote it when they do have it.
All right, thank you. All right, next question. The news talks a lot about worker shortages in the food and construction industries. Are the speakers seeing those same issues in the EE energy sector as well? Do you see a pathway in solving those issues? And let's start with Kim.
Yes, the answer is yes. We are definitely seeing a shortage and being impacted by the shortage. And that also goes for not only construction, but property management as well, which we have a lot of turnover in property management. It's been difficult. In terms of how to address that problem, I think a lot of what Brandi and Matt and I have talked about today and the work that they're doing and the work that's hopefully on the horizon can help us address those changes. And I think it's also just about I think it's just going to be a shift in people's awareness of those types of jobs, or within that sector, and recognizing them as a career path. So I think it's going to take some time, but I think we're on the right track.
So if I may jump in and kind of support and follow some of what Kim was mentioning, and Kim, you alluded to the importance of the collaboration between not only the community colleges and Virginia Tech, but also the workforce investment boards and those wraparound services. And that, to your point earlier, that is extremely important. Is whether it be the WIBs or Goodwill Industries, or I know that there's a new just recently launched organization and effort in each of the main regions called Network to Work. So for example, here in the central region, we have Network to Work RVA, but all of those groups are working together and providing those wraparound services. So that's one piece. That's one way that we can reach and hopefully appeal to the various audiences in our community. But then the other one is, and Kim, you just mentioned this, is awareness. I'll take us back to the 2011-12 timeframe. When the VEWC was, again, very manually trying to pull some data on what was the demand in the industry, but also what education and training pathways exist, and sadly we miscreate. So I'm sorry we missed that one. But at any rate, in essence, there is not a lot of awareness about the energy careers, because a lot of people just associate it with paying a bill, or that there's power lines and power stations. But then there also weren't pathways that they could easily identify with to hop on and find a way to the career. So that is improving, and that's some of the accomplishments that I shared. But between the two, we have to all work together to create better awareness, not only about the careers and the opportunities in the industry, but how to get to them, and then what are those partners and wraparound services. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's plenty of talented individuals out there, and if we can continue to reach them, then they certainly are the ones that I think we'd like to have come join our industry.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Brandi mentioned the importance of diversity in the workforce. Do employers need to think about diversifying their recruiting tactics in order to obtain a diverse workforce? What are some examples of new recruitment pathways that should be considered? Brandi, you want to take that first?
Sure, yeah. And this is something that we are just now delving in. I mean, this has been a topic that has been on the rise, and there's a lot of the larger companies and corporations have D&I programs that are in place. And what we're trying to do through the Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium is open the discussion on the success of these programs and open them up to smaller institutions that may have questions on how to implement programs that are effective, and have those conversations on how to not only implement the programs that are embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workforce, but also how to measure the success of these programs and learn from pitfalls or continue to grow and develop the programs as needed and shape them. So, and I think that this is something that is most effective when you have open discussions about what works and what doesn't work, and being able to have energy industry partners together and having these open discussions and how to implement these programs effectively is key. And I think Virginia Energy Workforce Consortium, where it brings private and public and educators all together so that they can have those discussions, it makes it more meaningful and more effective, and makes it open so that people are able to successfully implement these programs.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that I think if you ask any employer or organization like CHP or whomever, if you ask any of us, we will say that we want our organizations to reflect the communities that we serve. And so then beyond that, then what I think, and we're showing examples, whether it be creates, and hopefully we can replicate more of that, or it's the 17th Energy Career Cluster, or the energy certificates and other degree programs that exist in our post-secondary, or even transition programs for military, whatever it is. I think the fact that we're working together and gaining really positive momentum on creating awareness about these opportunities, but if we don't create the pathway to those careers beyond just the awareness, so we have to give them education and training and these other tools so that they can properly network and compete for the opportunities. That is a huge piece of it. And then again, I cannot emphasize enough, partnering with the WIBs, the Goodwills, and the others in the communities. Those are huge things. And I know it sounds very simple, but those are huge steps that we have to continue to take in order to systemically create easier pathways for folks in these communities that we want to serve to come be a part of it and take advantage of the employment opportunities that do exist. And I can't stress enough the word systemic. My opinion is, prior to, and this has nothing to do with the Department of Education, community college system at all. Matter of fact, it might have more to do with the industry emphasizing the importance of having this energy education. But if a school did not have on the shelf energy programs or energy courses to offer to their students, whether it be in an urban setting or rural setting or anywhere else, if they didn't have those courses, and if industry wasn't more present in those classrooms, as an example, then how in the world would those students know that we are a great industry to be a part of, and that they could come, take these courses and be, and pursue our opportunities? So, those are just some of my perspectives, and I won't dare hop on other soapboxes, but I feel very passionately about the fact that we do need to continue to work together to make sure that all these things that Brandi and Kim and myself are mentioning, that they do exist, so that we can partner with the folks in our communities, show them how to, train up and get into our industry, and then earn those careers that we offer.
Thank you. All right, there's been discussion of community college level, university level, high school level. Do you think there's value in trying to reach students earlier in their education career, in middle or elementary, to get the awareness out that energy is a viable industry to think about? When you ask an elementary student what they want to be, they'll say a firefighter or a singer. Nobody says energy manager. How do we change that? Let's start with Kim.
Sure. I was going to say, one of the sad things is I think kids nowadays are saying they want to be a YouTuber as their number one thing, which is super sad. But yeah, I think we've actually talked about it at CHP. We have this training center. It was on one of my slides that has really cool house of pressure and like hands-on training around the house as a system, and we've actually toyed with the idea. Actually, I know we have brought in kids, including my kids, to through the elementary school programs to take a tour and learn about what energy efficiency is and how it could be a career path. Now that's a small, that's, Blacksburg, one of the Blacksburg elementary schools. So we didn't make a huge impact on the community there, but I think there's opportunity I 100% think there's opportunity to get kids excited about energy efficiency at a much younger level than high school and create that awareness that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I mean, any little bit. So even if it is the one elementary school, or if whatever, that's a huge accomplishment and step in all the positive directions. But I guess the challenge is, and I'll just say, coming from Dominion Energy, the challenges are. Who do we have within our organizations that can help organize outside of a day job? So it's got to be a workforce development dedicated team and effort, and being able to orchestrate and coordinate with our employees or whomever. But that's a pretty big undertaking for even a company like Dominion to tap into its employees, to go out to all the middle schools and high schools where there's interest. So that's just one thing. However, and it's interesting, Kim, I'd like to just brainstorm and chat with you even outside of today, but I have seen examples in other states where through some of the federal or state dollars that are awarded to or granted to the energy industry, there are actually some programs for energy efficiency where built into I guess to the grant and how it was documented, education coordinators. And matter of fact, in this one instance, I'm aware of this effort having 20 plus education coordinators, where the primary purpose is to go and actually talk to students at those various levels about energy efficiency. That is the primary focus. However, when they're in the classroom, of course, there's an opportunity to better introduce the broader industry and how it all ties together, and I guess ultimately why energy efficiency is important. So I think it's whatever the idea is and whatever we can do together through here in Virginia, I think that there are opportunities like that, and maybe that's a way to leverage some of these dollars that are available. But I think we're going to have to work together in that way, and I think that. So anyway, it's important because the CTEs, the Career and Technical Education Centers and high schools that are offering or interested in offering energy, they're already thinking about, well, now we need to market it to our 8th graders so that they can, sign up and, be a part of this program. Well, we've even had requests from the respective elementary schools that feed into that middle school. So it's coming, and we have to be prepared to partner with them and to create that awareness in those settings.
All right, thank you. All right, one more question. What are some of the main credentials or certifications that candidates should be on the lookout for to make them more eligible for energy jobs? And I'll start with Brandi.
Oh, there's numerous amounts because you've got the certification level ranges from air leakage control installers to building analysts who learn how to perform comprehensive whole home assessments and identify problems at their root cause. You've got crew leader certification, where you prove the ability to ensure the quality and supervision of the installation and the performance prescribed for those energy efficiency upgrades. Energy auditors, the list goes on and on. Envelope professionals, healthy home evaluators. But having access to these certifications and bringing that down through the K through 12 level, that's something, as Matt mentioned, it's something that needs to be enforced and strengthened so that there is knowledge and enthusiasm about these opportunities and the importance of these opportunities that are available. But that's just to name a few.
Kim, what are some of the main certifications that your folks might seek?
Honestly, Brandi kind of nailed it. We have at our training center, we do all of that. We do the crew leader, the energy auditor, retrofit installer technician, basically what Brandi mentioned, a lot of HVAC focused certification programs. And I've mentioned, so that's on the energy efficiency side. I've mentioned property management, but I feel like I would like for CHP to kind of move away from thinking about those separately, because I do feel like property management, which includes maintenance staff, really also needs to have that energy efficiency skill set for the work they do as well. So we do have a green property management certificate as well. And so, yeah, Brandi, I think you pretty much hit on everything that we focus on at the, and BPI certification as well is something that we do at the training center.
Matt, you have anything to add?
No, not to that, but if I may, I'd like to reiterate, and I meant to mention this in my previous response, but our interaction doesn't have to always be in person. Matter of fact, I know we've learned over the past 18 months how to live in this hybrid way, whether it's in person or virtual, like we're doing now. So even if there are videos or websites, or if those of us that are on the industry side or whomever can share virtual tours, whatever content we can share, that's another way that we can try to reach more classrooms and teachers and students and parents. And plus the Department of Education, Brandi probably remembers as well, the Department of Education is longing for, as our community college systems and other training providers, but they're longing for that kind of content to kind of attach to the educator's view of the particular course. So I just wanted to mention that, that is something else that it's challenging, but that's something else that's really important, is if there's a way that we can start to gather those virtual resources, that's another way to kind of, reach the masses without us all having to be physically present in each place.
All right, thank you very much. Kim, did you have something to add?
I was just going to second that. We do a lot of online curriculum, and especially during the onset of COVID, we really did, focus on beefing up our online curriculum, as well as live streaming is something that we've done for a while now too. So it's not just, reading and looking at existing curriculum, but really being able to plug into a live streaming of a training in progress.
All right, thank you. All right, that is all of the questions we received. We just have a few minutes before we reconvene at 3:55 in the main room for some closing remarks. So thank you so much to all of our panelists, Kim, Brandi, and Matt, for your insights. And thanks to everybody that came to join, and maybe we'll see you in person tomorrow.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It sounds like the other panel is breaking early as well. So thank you again to all of our panelists and to Carrie for moderating. And we're going to move everyone into the big room for our final comments of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.